Welcome, everyone, to the PFF Fantasy Podcast, IDP edition. I'm your host, Jon Macri, fantasy analyst here at PFF. And if you're tuning in to this, then you are well aware that hashtag prospect season continues to roll on here. Last week, we covered the IDP linebacker prospects with Kyle Bellyfuel, and this time around, we're turning our attention to the rookie edge class. And I have to say, we have a very interesting crop of players to discuss. We'll be doing our usual deep dive on a bunch of them and talk about where we have these guys ranked as well. Of course, we got my guy, Joey the freaking Tooth, back here as well to help break it all down. So without further ado, let's get it. All right, I have been itching to talk some edge rushers in this class. I am pumped to finally get in here and discuss this class and what they could be for IDP. And joining me, just as he has many times before, to go over the incoming crop of edge defenders from footballguys.com, it is the one, the only, the toothy mofo himself, Joey the Tooth. Joey, how are things, my man?
Things are great. How about you, Jon?
Everything is good, man. It's a fun time of year. I love draft season, prospect season, talking rookies, and very excited to get you back on here to do it as well. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, my pleasure. I love the intro music. It like being somebody who played that game a lot as a child, it pumps me up for the pod. It's like, yes, do this.
Yeah. It's I've been I always love like the old school video games, and that music still makes me happy. Like I go back and I play a lot of the retro games. Like I'm playing Final Fantasy VI right now.
Nice.
And it's just got like, such a badass battle theme that I love. And it's a similar vein to that. So, anyways, that's kind of where like a lot of the inspiration for that retro feel comes from, is just my love of like old video games. So I always appreciate when other people feel the same and are old like me. So I appreciate that. But yeah, man, this is definitely fun. Every year we do it. We talk edge defenders. We go over our rankings and what we liked about guys, and you know, strengths and weaknesses and all that stuff. And I feel like we always have fun doing it. And I think we always come away feeling more knowledgeable about the class after talking to one another. I think we always have different insights and stuff that we bring to the table. So hopefully people enjoy this as we get into it here. Like I said, we're covering the edges today. We'll go over them in alphabetical order, as is tradition, and then share our rankings of the coming 8 into the draft for Dynasty Rookie IDP draft purposes. But yeah, also, if you're watching on the YouTubes, please like and subscribe. It helps me personally a ton, and I'd be forever grateful if I knew you were an active supporter of the show. So feel free to shout out in the comments, ask questions. I'm always happy to interact with folks when I can. So lastly, before we get into it, I do want to let everybody know to check out the PFF Mock Draft Simulator. If you haven't done so already, it's where you can take control and draft for your favorite team or draft for the entire league, whatever you want. I know I like to draft for all teams, make my own mocks, do trades, try out different strategies, all that kind of fun stuff. I mean, it's April, it's officially draft month, so hop in there, make some picks, make those trades, and have some fun with it. You can use the promo code 30MDS right now on PFF.com to get 30% off annual subscriptions, which includes all of our NFL draft content and, of course, access to the best mock draft simulator in the league here at PFF. So check it out now and go have yourself some fun. Again, that is promo code 30MDS. All right. In the immortal words of Dak Prescott, okay, here we go. Let's get into this edge class. And Joey, we'll start things off at Penn State, where we actually have 2 Nittany Lions to discuss in this episode, but we'll start off with Adisa Isaac first. What were your thoughts on Isaac?
Kind of a mixed bag. I think he's very bendy. He's a flexible athlete. He flattens out on the edge quite well. He's got good burst and short area quickness. He's got a first step that pops, and he gets into the backfield pretty quickly, and he's got a nice inside counter. That was, I feel like, his best move. Only issue is he seems like he lacks a little bit of functional strength. And when he goes up against strong tackles, he kind of gets stood up a little bit and he has a tough time shedding blocks. But he does have a frame to add a little more mass to him if he needs to. I just hope it doesn't take away from his initial burst. But it's kind of funny, like looking at this draft class kind of reminds me back to the Arnold Ebiketie draft, because you have Adisa Isaac, who I don't think is as good as Chop Robinson, but he seemed to outperform him stat-wise at Penn State. And it's kind of like Arnold Ebiketie and Shaka Toney. Arnold Ebiketie was obviously the more complete player, but his stat line never popped out. And Shaka Toney actually outperformed him in their draft season. So it's kind of like I'm getting the same vibe, and it's odd that it's both Penn State again.
Yeah, no, I could see that for sure. And I'm with you. Like it is a mixed bag with Isaac, right? Like I found, kind of watching him, he's kind of this like jack of all trades, kind of master of none type pass rusher, right? Like, and I don't want that to, necessarily be like taken as a negative or anything like that, but more of just a way to kind of highlight that he actually does win in a variety of ways, whether it's like outside, around the edge, cutting across the face of an offensive tackle, taking optimal paths on stunts, winning with power, fighting through chip blocks, even busted out a spin move against Michigan State at one point. Like, but he's far from refined, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of why I think we don't see him win consistently on a play-to-pay basis. And the good thing is that he's doing so much and he's trying so many different moves, and he's asked to stunt a bit more. So, he has a head start on developing that larger toolbox of moves, which, when contrasted with like a Chop Robinson, for example, who we'll talk about in a bit, you can tell that these guys are very different edge defenders in so many ways, right? So yeah, he's an interesting player. Like you said, there's a lot of work there that needs to be done, obviously, but one of the ways that I felt okay about him too, it was kind of as a run defender. I liked what he brought as a run defender for the most part, and in that he did a really good job at just kind of limiting the negative plays, which I think is a lot easier said than done, especially for a guy who is undersized for his position. Like you said, he's 9th percentile in weight. I think he did a nice job kind of, for the most part, holding up, kind of standing his ground to maintain that gap control and coming up with plays when needed. But there are definitely plays where he's getting blown off the ball. It's just not nearly as much as I'd expect to see from a lighter player at the position. Yeah. So that I think that's going to be more of an issue in the NFL for sure, but at least kind of highlights that he has some decent plate strength at times and could hold his own on top of being like a relatively sound run defender, which I thought was nice to see. But other than that, I mean, like he's number 7 on the PFF big board. So like, I don't want to knock him too much for not being amazing at any one thing, because, again, these guys are developing and it's expected that they have so much time to grow still. So, at the same time, at least he's developing like a pretty good wide array of a pass rush repertoire. He's just not there yet, at least to the point where, he's doing it consistently. And that shows in his career numbers as well. Like we have him up on the screen there, 77.8 career pass rush grade, 35th percentile, 12.1% win rate, 21st percentile, 13.2% pressure rate, 52nd percentile, and 9.7% quick pressure rate is 62nd percentile. That's among edge prospects since 2016. So, I came away feeling okay about him, not nearly as much as I'd like, some of the other guys in this class, basically.
Yeah, he's a guy, if you're going to draft, you're definitely going to have to wait a little while. He's not even like a guy, some of these guys are really good pass rushers, but they're terrible at run defense, but they can still have a specialist role as a rookie. I don't think Isaac's going to be a guy who has a sort of specialist role because he doesn't have that one thing that he's really good at. Right.
Yeah, and you're right. It is. There's actually a lot of guys, like you said, that are like really great pass rushers and not great run defenders in this class, but I thought he was like, he was just kind of fine at everything, right? So I could see him, being kind of a rotational type player in the NFL. Maybe he could pack on some more pounds, like you said there. But yeah, definitely work in progress. But as far as moldable clay goes, like that clay has already been kind of started to be molded, and there's maybe a head start there for NFL coaches, and I think will help him develop a little quicker once he gets in an NFL system, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up is a guy who almost didn't make the list, the number 10 player on the PFF big board. But Joey, I'm really glad that you brought him up for discussion. It's Bralen Trice, real name, no gimmicks, out of Washington. And the way that I described him in my notes here is an absolute wrecking ball of a bull in a china shop pass rushing style. And it really works for him. Like, dude is as physical as it gets when it comes to edge rushers. I mean, a lot of these guys who we'll talk about in a bit are looking to win by avoiding contact, where I don't think Trice is satisfied until he gets some good contact from offensive linemen, just so, he can get violent with them, knock their hands away, or bully his way to a win. Like, even when his line mate beside him is eating up a double team next to him, like, and it opens up a path for him where he can run free, he's still throwing a shoulder check to make sure O-linemen know that he's there. Like, I want this guy on my hockey team, man. I imagine that, he's probably not a fun player to play against. And if you're lining up with him as the primary pass blocker in that game, you're probably going home sore. So there's no doubt about that, right? Like, he just
sore and exhausted.
Exactly. Like, he has like this intimidating play style where he's utilizing his physicality and strength to win, and he wins so often because of it. And, whether he's just wearing down opposing offensive linemen or just because he's that much stronger than them, it's definitely one of the more unique play styles in this class. And it's really, really effective. So yeah, I like Trice. What did you think about him?
I like him too, actually. He's got great strength in his hands. He's always engaging at the point of attack. He's got a nice rip move, nice swipe. He's got good leg drive, which he converts his into power, and he's just so powerful, like from ankles up, and he just has so much drive, and it's just fun to watch him grab and bully. But I like Trice because he's got an NFL ready frame, and he's also kind of scheme versatile. Like, I could see him playing a defensive end in a 3-4, or being an edge in a 4-3 or hybrid system. I really think he could fit anywhere along those lines. So I do like his capability, and I think because of that versatility, it makes him a little more of an intriguing prospect, because wherever he goes, he has the opportunity to actually play.
I think you're right. I think there's opportunity for him in like various systems, and potentially as like a 3-down guy too. Like, you do see that kind of, wrecking ball mentality as a run defender as well, where he wins and he gets into the backfield by blowing up his blocker at the line of scrimmage, and it allows him to make plays. And the problem, comes from probably with him for finishing, right? Like 29 missed tackles over the past 2 years as a starter. Like, that's a really rough number that needs to be cleaned up. But overall, that physicality just allows him to win so often as a pass rusher, and translates to him as a run defender as well. And that's something that I think can translate to the NFL. So yeah, like I said, I came away really digging Trice, and that play style just brings another level of physicality and violence to the position. He's not the most athletic or the biggest guy out there, but he makes up for that with how he plays as if he was, the most athletic and biggest guy out there. I just love that from him. Like, he is this year's shining example of he's got that dog in him. For me, like, he is really productive as well. 150 pressures, 17 sacks over the last 2 seasons. And then again, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the numbers on the screen, but for those just listening on audio, 94th percentile in career pass rush grade, 90th percentile in career win rate, 87th percentile in career pressure rate, and 80th percentile in quick pressure rate, which I found surprising, considering his willingness to seek out contact. I think that's a pretty impressive number for a guy that, he still does win with those quick wins where he doesn't have to make contact as well. But for a guy that's looking for contact so often, I thought that was an impressive number from him. So yeah, really encouraging stuff from Bralen Trice, I found.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He is just incredibly fun to watch. He's a violent man.
He is, man. He's just he's a different breed out there. He's just a beast, and I love that about him.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's take a quick ad break here from our friends at Fabric by Gerber Life. If you have a family, then you need to get term life insurance to protect them. It's one of the smartest financial decisions you can make, and the start of the new year is the perfect time to get it done so you can focus on whatever else the year has in store for you. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You could go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/fantasy. That's meetfabric.com/fantasy, MEET fabric.com/fantasy. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, back to Penn State now to discuss the other Nittany Lion. I like to say Nittany Lion, but I can't say Nittany Lion.
It's a tough one.
But a guy that has gotten a lot more buzz than his teammate Adisa Isaac, who we talked about at the top there. It's Chop Robinson. Joey, interesting player here. So I'm really curious to see where you land on Chop.
So he's also a guy kind of like I don't even know what to call him, but he has all of the tools to become a near elite pass rusher. I mean, he's probably the most physically gifted pass rusher in the draft. He's probably the most flexible. He flattens out well. He gets in the backfield quick, as you can see, 98th percentile quick pressure rate. He packs a mean punch in his hands. It's just, I would expect him to be a little more productive, and it makes me worried slightly, mainly because as we spoke of Arnold Ebiketie earlier, like you saw how long it took him to actually put together a decent half of the season. It was a year and a half. And then finally the second half of his second season, he finally came alive. And it's like, are we going to get a Micah Parsons type, or are we going to get an Arnold Ebiketie? I'm not sure with Chop Robinson, but with the tools he has and his athleticism, I feel like it's going to be more towards the Micah Parsons. I mean, obviously you can't say somebody's going to be Micah Parsons, but he has the potential to be an elite pass rusher.
Yeah. I'm with you. Like, you watch him and he already has an elite, like, first step, right? Like, might be the most explosive edge in this entire class. He's just so quick off the line at the snap that he's often already beat his blocker and en route to the quarterback before anyone else is through their first attempt at a pass rush move. So it's just crazy how fast he can beat his man, and that shows in that quick pressure rate, like you mentioned, for his career. 16%, 98th percentile mark among prospects since 2016. That's a really impressive number there. He has great bend and dip to get around those corners on tight angles, put himself on a better path to the pocket as well. Just makes him such a tough matchup for like those less athletic offensive tackles who really have no chance of keeping up with him, really. So now the other thing with him, like, he's so often trying to win with speed and that outside move that it does become a bit predictable. So, if you're chipping him or getting an extra pair of hands on him, he doesn't necessarily have as much counters to his game or the overall play strength to work through it. Like, he did start to win with power more in the latter half of the year, I noticed, which you like to see as an area he's potentially working on, but still not quite to the level that you'd like just yet. And then he's one of those guys, like, as a run defender, that quickness and explosiveness, it shows up where he can win his matchup, get himself in the right gap. But what he does with it once he's there is kind of the problem. Like, ends up out of position quite a bit, gets taken out by other blockers, and just isn't providing enough there on a consistent basis to probably risk that aggressiveness on those early downs. So, that he's one of those guys for sure, that elite pass rusher potentially. I worry about, his 3-down ability in the NFL if he doesn't clean up that run defense a little bit. But love the explosiveness, of course, from him, right? He just has rare speed. He has an elite first step that's going to help him win at a high rate. he'll need to develop more than just that outside bend around the edge to win. And you see it at times when he's asked to kind of like rush the A gap, for example, where he does like a good stutter move to beat interior offensive linemen on the inside shoulder, which is, again, expected against those kind of guys where they don't stand much of a chance against him at all. But I thought Robinson was really fun. I'm not overly concerned about the 10 sacks I think it is that he's had here for his career. Just with kind of everything else taken into account, like 97th percentile career pass rush grade, 87th percentile win rate, 93rd percentile pressure rate, and again that quick pressure rate is insane at the 98th percentile. So he's going to be interesting. I have him as like a 97th percentile prospect for me in my model, and anybody that has been 95th percentile and above has gone in the first round. He's currently projected as a second rounder. So could become, an outlier there. He's not alone in that, in guys that have struggled against the run, like Josh Allen out of Kentucky at the time was somebody that I think is a similar kind of profile to him in a way. And, I think there's definitely a path for him to become one of the top edge guys in the NFL through development. And it just might be as a pass rusher only at first to start.
I'm surprised after the combine, it didn't vault him at least like the back half of the first round.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like we got him. So he's trending to at 38 right now as far as like his ADP. So it's early second round.
So he'll go 8th overall. No.
The
draft is insane sometimes.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, man, I would not be surprised to see him go in the first round. I think end of the first round, I think there's a very good chance that one of these teams is gonna be interested in him and feel good enough to take that swing on him at the end of the first round. I probably, I would feel pretty good that's
bring him to San Francisco.
There you go. Oh man, dude, they're just stacking up all the time, aren't they?
That'd
like
be sweet.
That would be fun for sure. So, anything else on Chop Robinson?
No, I think I'm good with Chop for now.
Nice. Yeah, we'll come back to him when we do the rankings and stuff too. All right, next up, we're going to head to Alabama for a stint here because we actually have two Crimson Tide edge rushers as well. And we'll start things off with Chris Braswell, who is the number 4 edge on the PFF big board. So with Braswell, first thing I noticed, like, he's another guy has a great first step. He's explosive off the line, does do like this little hop step a little too much sometimes, but at the same time, it works for him, albeit against college offensive linemen, but he does a nice job. I thought converting speed to power, despite not being like a huge edge. He actually wins with his bull rush pretty consistently, which is, he's very clearly like strong as hell, which you love to see. The guy is regularly driving offensive linemen into the quarterback's lap and wreaking havoc. He's not the bendiest pass rusher. Like, he's not dipping around the corner on a regular basis to win that way, which can be an issue at times, I think, in the NFL, if he isn't able to develop more of a repertoire there. But I think there's enough in his toolbox right now to kind of make up for that, specifically with his power. But like I said, he has great timing, great jump off the line to help him win more often and gain the advantage against pass blockers. That strength and power, definitely an asset for him as a run defender as well. He's another one, maybe not as consistent there because, when he's facing offensive linemen that are on the attack, he's struggling a little bit more to use that power. So it kind of expected at times, but he's often getting moved out of position or out of his gap as well, which is, obviously a big problem. He is just a 20th percentile career run defense grade at 68.1, which doesn't bode well for his every down opportunity in the NFL, at least early in his career. But I think there's a path there for him, again, because he's already very strong. If he can continue to get better there, I think there's a role for him to potentially be that 3-down guy at some point.
I like listening to that, everything you said, because the notes I have on that were almost identical. Okay. So it's like, all right.
Nice.
The one thing I did want to add was watching him drop in zone. He's actually, you can see he's got great IQ. He's got good pre-snap reads. he actually understands what he needs to do in zone coverage. So having an edge defender that can do that in today's NFL is huge. Being able to like mask your defense a little bit, mask who's rushing, mask a blitz, just being able to drop an edge in coverage might get him on the field a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. Like, I think there's definitely, depending on the team that he ends up on, and what their scheme calls for, there's a path there for sure. But yeah, he's an interesting player. I mean, again, I really liked what I saw from him as a pass rusher, that level of explosiveness and power. There's a role for him to be an effective edge in the NFL, potentially early in his NFL career. Obviously can use some refinement and work to his pass rush repertoire, but still like the motor, like the effort. I think that's translatable asset to the NFL. I don't think he'll be a 3-down player right away. But who knows? Maybe he lands somewhere where they have nobody else and have no choice but to kind of plug him in an every down role. Yeah. Like I don't think he's suited for that right now. And getting him in that role year one would be maybe a concern for his development. But that being said, like, I think as a pass rusher, he's kind of earned the right to be considered one of the top edges in this class for NFL purposes. And there's a path for him to be a year one contributor for that reason alone.
Yep, I agree.
All right. The other Alabama edge rusher that I'm sure people are excited to hear about, because he is the top edge prospect on a lot of draft boards right now, whether he should be for IDP draft boards. Well, we'll get into that. But Joey, tell us about Bama's Dallas Turner.
So you see a lot of these guys are speed and power, just power. Turner's just pure speed. Yeah. Like he's a speed rusher through and through. He's effective in using his strengths, though. He's got a flexible form from his ankles to his hips, lightning quick first step. He's shown the ability to change direction without losing ground at all, probably better than any edge in this class. He has shown improvement in his run defense in his final year in college. He was cleaned it up quite a bit. I do think he needs to bulk up some. I think he comes in at only around 240 pounds. Kind of like reminds me of Brian Burns when he first came out. But he has tools, and he has the tools to hide his lower play strength, like that speed. That speed rush is just, that's where he's going to make his money early in his career. He'll probably end up being I would say a pass rushing specialist as a rookie, but still I think he'll see the field plenty in those pass rushing moments that he can make an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an interesting player. Like, I think he had a 9.49 relative athletic score. I want to say, I can't remember the exact one. I was going to look it up, but anyways, super athlete here. Right. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of tools, a lot of traits to like. He has a good get off, not necessarily, quick off the line to blow past offensive tackles. He does win with strength and second effort a lot. And, he's another one that is seeking contact off the line versus trying to kind of finesse around that blocker. I found a little bit. So the outside move, bull rush, those are his go-tos. The bull rush is impressive. I thought he had some great speed to power off the line, not a bendy player by any means. So, he wins by getting a good jump off the line and catching offensive tackles off balance. I would like to see him utilize or develop more of an inside move. I found a lot of the time when he tries it, he ends up getting kind of stopped or has to counter back to the outside or has to power his way through instead of getting those clean, quick wins across the tackle's face. Like he did start to get more of that later in the year, which I thought was a good sign, but it wasn't like a ton. You also don't see him win with his hands a lot either. He's just not overly refined there yet, which is fine because, we don't expect these guys to be finished products coming out of college. But he does still find a lot of ways to win his reps, right? And a lot of the time it's just on sheer effort and athleticism alone, but he does win with some good jumps off the line and overall strength. It's just, it's not always going to translate to like strong grades in our system, for example, but it could work out for IDP depending on, if he's able to get some of that sack luck where quarterbacks are holding the ball too long or he's cleaning up, things like that. But you look at the grades and things like that. They're not overly impressive by any means. 84.4 career pass rush grade, which was 52nd percentile. Career win rate just 13.6%. That's 30th percentile. 10% quick pressure rate is 66th percentile. The run defense grade was 46th percentile at 74.4. So clearly, we see this a lot with these athletic guys, that there's only so far that athleticism is going to get you if you haven't refined your pass rush repertoire as well, especially early in NFL careers. So I think that, as far as motor goes and effort, I obviously love that from him. I think if he's able to keep that up in the NFL, he'll be productive as an IDP, which is obviously going to be the key, I think, at least in the early stages of his career. But doesn't have that overly refined pass rush toolbox by any means, right? It's often second effort wins, strength jumps off the line. So it becomes a lot harder to do in the NFL. So we'll see, he's going to have to develop more, obviously, as a pass rusher and develop that toolbox a little bit more. So I could see him taking some time basically to become relevant as an IDP in the NFL, like just as he develops and realizes that, he won't be able to win as easily with power and second effort because he's facing stronger competition and that ball is coming out quicker. So those cleanup sack opportunities will be harder to come by as well. So I would say, if Dallas Turner is your top ranked edge, I think you just have to be patient. Like I don't think you could expect him to come in and be an immediate contributor. Like, I'm not saying that it's impossible by any means. We'll see where he lands and things like that. But I think this is a guy that could potentially take some time to develop in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I was looking, ways that he could kind of fit in, what teams might take a shot on him. And, somebody's going to draft him, whether it's Atlanta or somebody like that. Atlanta's a popular landing spot for him, but man, Atlanta, I feel like they need somebody that can do it now, right?
They do. That's what I was just going to say. Like, Atlanta keeps getting these guys that are like decent pass rushers.
Yeah.
And they need an effective pass rusher badly. Yeah. They haven't had one since, gosh, I don't even know now. When was the last time they had an effective edge rusher?
I know. Yeah. It's been a really long time for Atlanta. I remember, looking up that stat a while back, and I can't even remember the name that I came across. It's escaping me now, but it's been a while for sure. And it might have been like Jonathan Abrams. Yes. Yeah, can't remember, but I might just be misremembering the name. But yeah, man, Turner, look, I think if he does go to Atlanta, I think it's a very likely landing spot for him. People are going to be excited about it. There's going to be opportunity there. I don't think it's going to be as lucrative of a spot for IDP purposes, at least early in his career. But I like the long-term potential with him. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to another hot name here from this edge class. It's Jared Verse out of FSU. Jared Verse is the number 3 edge on the PFF big board. And this is a guy that I found did have a very polished pass rush repertoire. He can win in a variety of ways. He has great power. So those bull rush and second effort attempts work really well for him. He's got strong hands. He's quick around the edge. He has the quickness to cut inside as well and break through the interior of the offensive line. Like, he's not always the first off the line, especially early in the 2023 season, I found, but it isn't a hindrance to his ability to just post those like dominant wins, at least not in college, right? Because he's just so damn explosive. He's like a bullet once he takes his first step and immediately blows past the rest of his defensive linemen, which is really satisfying to watch. Some of his pass rush metrics really impressive as well. 92.7 career pass rush grade was 95th percentile. 20.4% win rate was 89th percentile. 18.4% pressure rate, 91st percentile, and a 13.5% quick pressure rate was 92nd percentile. So really high-end pass rusher here, obviously coming out of college. And like many high-end pass rushers, he's very aggressive as a run defender, where it's win first, responsibility second kind of mentality when, he knows that he's good enough to win his matchup and get in the backfield. And he does a lot with speed or power. He can shed as well. And then once he's beat them, then he's looking for the runner. But sometimes that works out. Other times it doesn't. But again, you see this with a lot of the top edges in the NFL as well. Like Myles Garrett's a great example of this. Like they'll gamble with their talent because they know that there are big plays to be made when they win. And Verse is no different than that. So there will be times where it just doesn't work and he's too aggressive defending the run. He ends up giving up his gap or losing the edge, but he'll make up for it as well. So, no surprise to kind of see his PFF run defense grades kind of end up closer to average as well. So overall, really, really fun player. I thought a very good player. So where are you at with Verse?
Again, it was like virtually identical. I said great speed to power.
Yeah.
It was, I'm feeling really vindicated here. This is fantastic.
It's beautiful.
But I liked him. I liked his bend on the edge. I loved his speed. I loved his power. The main thing I said he could work on is his patience a little bit, hold his gaps a little better. Too often he tries to get too wide in his pass rush off the edge and he gets behind the quarterback, just allowing him to easily step up. But other than that, I feel like he's a pretty refined prospect. I mean, he's probably one of the most NFL ready pass rushers in this draft. And I love the fact that he wins with both speed and power. So it's like,
yeah,
I like Jared Verse a lot.
I'm with you. I came away really liking him, like definitely one of those guys that has like a full bag of tricks, strong pass rush repertoire to rely on when he gets to the NFL. He's got great size and speed. I had written in my notes prior to the combine that I could easily see him being one of those players with like a lower 10-yard split time, but ultimately great 40 time just because of that occasional late step. And there was a bit of a difference there. He had 80th percentile 10-yard split, 90th percentile 40 time. But his explosiveness, it really is the key here. Once he does take that step, it's evident that he's a high-end talent, and you combine that with his pass rush skills, like he should absolutely translate to the NFL. I don't know, how large his opportunity will be on rundowns. It's just a matter of coach and team and how much they're willing to gamble with him as a run defender and trust him in those situations. But I do believe that upside ultimately exceeds the risk with him as a run defender as well. So I don't see him being just a situational player, regardless of kind of where he lands, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, a couple names left to get through here. Next up is going to be Jonah Elliss out of Utah. So, Joey, tell us about Jonah Elliss.
I keep bouncing back and forth with him being up here and then or dropping back a little bit, but ultimately, I do like Ellis. I love he's got the NFL lineage. Obviously, he has 3 brothers who currently play in the NFL. He's got a relentless motor. He's got an obvious IQ and he's got good block shedding. Unfortunately for a man, he's got a smaller frame. You'd expect him to be a little quicker, a little more of a speed rusher, but he's not very flexible. He's not explosive. He's a strong, smaller guy, which is kind of odd to say, but he's a strong, smaller guy. So I'm a little worried that he's a little tight in his pass rush and he's not overly explosive, but he's been productive. But moving on to the NFL, he's gonna have a lot more roadblocks to face than some of these guys who actually have the size and explosiveness.
Yeah, the size is going to be one of the biggest issues, I think, with him. Like 6'2", 246. He is definitely on the smaller side, right? But really good, I thought, work with his hands. Like he actually developed a really nice pass rush repertoire as well, just finding ways to win with a variety of moves. And it's interesting with him. Like he had a really big leap in development. Like I started with some of his 2022 tape because usually that's how I do it. If I have some time, just to get a kind of sense of that development, right? And holy hell, like what a leap in progression from him from last year, like in 2022 to this year in 2023. He went from being like kind of a mid run of the mill edge guy who didn't even have good size to what looked like a completely different pass rusher in
Yeah.
2023. Like his game was definitely more refined. He was more explosive. He was busting out spin moves. He was winning on a more consistent basis in every single game, which wasn't even close to what we saw in 2022. So, and then you look at his pass rush grade, like that it highlights that jump as well. He went from a 62.7 pass rush grade to a 90.1 from 1 year to the next. So
wow,
a really nice leap there. It is just the 1 year of that high level production, so there's maybe some concern there, but the size again, you just keep coming back to it. That's the part that knocks him down, right? And as a run defender, it's definitely easier to see where that lack of size becomes a bigger problem, right? He's just not going to hold up against NFL tackles with that size when he hardly does it against college tackles. Like unless he's moved to off-ball linebacker or something, like I have a really hard time just kind of picturing him having a role on early downs, basically. So as much as I was blown away, from the improvement from 2022 to 2023, I thought that was a really nice sign. I'm sure, it can also be viewed as a red flag just as far as being that 1 year guy. But I personally was encouraged by his 2023 as a pass rusher. Probably just more going to be of a rotational role for him in the NFL, not likely someone we'd be overly excited about for IDP purposes outside of maybe like best ball formats.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that there was so much progression, I mean, it's either he had a really good year or he has shown the ability to be coached. And if he's that kind of guy, then it gives you a lot more intrigue. But unfortunately, it would have been nice if you saw it from like a sophomore to a junior year and then again in the senior year or vice versa, sophomore to junior, and then it dropped off. So then but we don't really know if it was just a one-off year or if it actually was progression.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked a lot better. You're right.
Yeah. But yeah, there's still that question mark, right? Like, and there always is with these kind of 1 year guys, right? Like you want to see a little bit more consistency there. And, it was a pretty full year of a workload and it was a pretty consistent, win rate on as far as play to play goes in every single game. So I thought that was really nice from him. But again, still like for a guy this size, there's going to be question marks about it, but at least shows that, he's willing to kind of work on his game and probably going to have to work on the size and the strength aspect of it as well. So that's Jonah Elliss there out of Utah. All right, let's go to the last guy on the list, and certainly not least out of UCLA. It is the Laiatu Latu. So with Latu, he is now the number one edge on the PFF big board. He was number 3 for a while, but we've got him up the board, rightfully so, I think.
Man.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's
way to
explosive.
Get him, Jon.
we pushed, we protested, and we finally got it. But no, I think there's just so much to like about him. I mean, explosive out of his stance. He's got a great jump off the line, but also does a really nice job setting up offensive linemen with a delayed step, like little hezzy move where he's able to explode off that second or third step to get by them. He just wins so quickly. Offensive linemen, again, they're barely off the line before he's already past them. Very similar to Chop Robinson in that way. And then you look at the quick pressure rate too, 14.7% for his career. That's 96th percentile. So just behind Chop Robinson there. But he loves that jump step outside move, and he's so good at it. He uses his hands as well as his quick feet to blow past the outside shoulder of these offensive tackles. He's got great bend. He's got tight turns around the edge. Even though like he wins quickly and cleanly more often than not, he has a lot of great second effort plays on tape as well. I thought the Colorado game too was a great example of just how dominant he can be. And the way that UCLA deployed him as an absolute weapon in that game, they lined him up against the left tackle, against the right tackle, between the tackles. They ran him on stunts. Like, he was an absolute terror. He went for 9 pressures and 4 sacks in that game. He was unreal. So yeah, if anybody hasn't watched Latu, I mean, watch the game against Colorado. It is an absolute masterpiece from him. So you just get like such a good sense of the athleticism from him when you watch his pass rush moves, especially on stunts, when he's looping to the middle of the line. He's just so fast, so smooth. Like he even had 2 interceptions this year, which were just ridiculously impressive plays for an edge rusher, right? Like one of them, he avoids the cut block and is still able to get up and pluck the ball out of the air. He almost took it to the house as well. And then he almost scored on his other interception as well, which is another one where he had to leap and grab the ball out of the air. And that was one where he dropped into coverage too. So he's super impressive. He really is, man. Like I have him as a 98th percentile prospect for me since 2016, behind only Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, and right next to Will Anderson. Like I know that's not factoring in, kind of the injury concerns. So you can knock him down a few notches for that if you like. But even still, he is far and away, to me, at least the best edge in this class. And I think that's impossible to ignore. Yeah,
I 100% agree. And I do like the edge class, but you look at Latu and it's almost like, oh, wow, he's that much better than everybody else. Like he's just complete. He's got the NFL ready technique. He's got the hands. He's got the speed. He's got the bend. He's literally complete. He can drop in coverage like he showed. The more and more I watched him, like I didn't really come away from this draft saying, there's there's good edge defenders, but they don't have that guy. Well, after watching Latu more and more, I was like, all right, he's that guy. He's 100% that guy. And like you said, that Colorado game, it's like, man, you can line him up wherever you want and he wins.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there's the injury history. What did he have, a brief medical retirement as a sophomore?
Yeah. Yeah. He did, right? Yeah. It's hard to ignore that, right? But
then in his next 2 seasons, he had 34 tackles for a loss and 23.5 sacks. It's like, I'm going to retire because my body can't take it, but then I'm just going to come back and just dominate everybody.
Dude, it's crazy, man. Like he really did kind of put those injury concerns to rest a little bit here, where they're just not as much of a concern as they were with maybe somebody like a Jalen Phillips, also a former UCLA guy too, right? Who also retired for a short stint, but like he's just so good. Like, and run defense too, like that quickness off the line. It's a big help here in getting him into the position into the backfield to make the play on the ball carrier. Like he does have some missed tackle issues, like doesn't always wrap up great. He had 12 missed tackles this past year, 11 the year before that. But the main thing is that he wins so fast at the line that, he has himself in position to make those plays, which are going to happen more often than not. So, I mean, like
even if he's not making the play, he's at least being disruptive. It's always changing the plan of the play. It's like he's just there, and you can't just run through somebody every single time. Even if he's not making the tackle, he's disrupting the play.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it with Jared Verse as well, right? Like that aggressiveness as a run defender. The same thing with Myles Garrett, like these guys that are willing to bet on their talent to just win at the line of scrimmage and then figure out the rest later, right? Because they know that there's these big plays to be had there from those wins. So get the same sense from him that in his play style, that's how he plays the run. And you mentioned it. I mean, as far as pass rushers in this year's class, like he is the most refined pass rusher of the class. He is the best pass rush repertoire of the group. He's as strong a run defender as well. Like, so you can see him taking on a nice volume heavy role in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he just reminds me a lot of Jalen Phillips coming out, who, a lot of the same reasons that I loved Phillips so much are there with Latu. And then you get some of the injury concerns with Latu, like we said as well. But back-to-back healthy seasons here with UCLA, where Phillips only had the 1 year back with Miami before declaring for the draft, right? So, you can factor in that he's a bit older as well. He's 23 years old, but he's also a lot more NFL ready because of it. I think he has the best shot to be productive right out of the gate and be an impact player, where some of these guys might just take some more time. And I think when approaching rookie drafts, that's how you have to think of these guys. Like, yes, he's 2 years older than a Dallas Turner, but he's at least 2 years ahead as far as development, and it shows in a big way. So if you assume that they played the same age in the NFL, sure, Latu plays a few less seasons, but if you're buying one of these guys in rookie drafts, wouldn't you rather have someone who you feel confident about starting right away in your lineup? Or would you rather have like a non-startable asset on your bench or on the taxi squad, most likely because they can't, earn that consistent starting status for IDP purposes? And who knows, it may still never get to that point, right, with a lot of these developmental prospects. So that's where I kind of just give the clear edge to Latu and why he's number one with a bullet for me.
And when it comes to fantasy football and edge defenders, honestly, if a guy's coming in an extra year or two older, it really doesn't affect where I'm going to draft him, because let's face it, you have a guy for 5-6 years in Dynasty, that'll put him at 28, 29 years old. He's still close to the tail end of his prime. So how often do you have somebody on your fantasy roster more than 5-6 years?
It's true, man. It's exactly the way you have to look at it, right? Like you look really, for dynasty purposes, a lot of the time I'm looking just at guys in like a 2 to 3 year window, 4 at the max, right? So what are they going to do in that window, in that span? Are they going to be productive for me? And I have full confidence in Latu over anybody else over in this class that he can be the most productive one. And look, obviously, landing spot and usage is going to play a big part in that. And if a team that drafts him already has 2 starting edge defenders on their roster, then it's going to be harder for him to crack the lineup. But if he's going somewhere like in Atlanta and Dallas Turner ends up somewhere like a Chicago, like these guys both have opportunities there, I'm going to bet much more heavily on Latu to be the productive guy of the bunch. So yeah, I'm clearly excited about Latu, and I'm excited that you are excited with me.
Yes. It was nice talking to you earlier before, like a month ago when we first started talking this, and we both talked about our number one was. I was like, man, that's because everything that I had seen up until that point, like everybody had Dallas Turner as edge one. And look, I mean, I get it, right? Like I get the long-term upside there and the athletic ability and everything like that. But I mean, just as far as like the best pass rushers right now in this draft who are already very, very good and you feel comfortable drafting and being able to start in the NFL, like I think Latu is head and shoulders above the rest there. So yeah, nice to see people coming around on that. Yeah, it's something to be said. Like you watch a lot of these guys, a lot of edge rushers now, you see him super athletic, right?
Yeah.
But when you see a guy who has the athleticism and then he throws in refined technique, then you're like, oh my gosh, that's the guy. That's the one. And that's where you're at with Latu in comparison to the rest of these guys. He's got the refined technique. He's got an NFL ready package and the athleticism.
Yep. Absolutely, man. That's it's a great segue here into our rankings as well. Like we've given away who we have as number one on the list. Obviously, it is the man on the screen right now, Latu out of UCLA. He's our clear number one. But I'll be curious where you go after that. Who did you have as number 2?
Jared Verse.
Nice. Yeah. I'm with you there. I also have Jared Verse as my number 2. I know people they're probably maybe surprised saying, where's Dallas Turner and whatever, but like we talked about with Verse, right? Again, he's another one of those guys that we feel pretty good about right now as far as what his pass rush ability is and everything that he does and translating to the NFL right away. And there's definitely some athletic ability there with him as well. So yeah, I'm in on Verse at number 2. So our top 2, exactly the same. How about number 3?
I really badly want to move Chop Robinson into number 3 just because I love his potential. But his draft capital is probably, if he doesn't land in a spot where he's going to go move into a spot right away, like that's why I have to have Dallas Turner here, because he's almost guaranteed first round draft capital, probably to a team that desperately needs an edge defender, which means he's probably going to see the field. So I think I like Robinson's long-term upside better than Turner, but I'm going to have to go with Turner here at number 3.
I have it pretty much exactly the same. Like I have Dallas Turner at 3 and I have Chop Robinson at 4. So it's like, yeah, again, like it's hard to, go completely away from Dallas Turner. Like I know we've talked about Latu obviously being, I think, clearly the better player right now. But I think, there is still that potential long term with Dallas Turner and buying into that athleticism and the draft capital as well and what he can be in the NFL and how he'll be given opportunity to be that player in the NFL throughout his career. So, yeah, I like him at 3. And then Chop Robinson is a very close 4 for me, as well, as just because of that pass rush ability. He's just so explosive. He's such a fun player. Like, not great as a run defender right now, but man, hell of a pass rusher, that's for sure. Who'd you have at 5?
5, I wanted to put Trice here, but I'm going to go Chris Braswell. I like Braswell's ability. I like him in coverage, being able to be in coverage, which may allow him to be on the field a little more. I love his power. He's quick enough. I think he has the opportunity to see more playing time early. And I think he'll actually have better draft capital than Trice, but I really like Trice, but I'm going to go Braswell at 5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did put Trice as 5, and then I have Braswell at 6, and it does seem like, Braswell, he'll be drafted ahead of Bralen Trice, most likely. We don't know for sure, obviously, but I love Bralen Trice's game.
He's
like we
fun,
talked
man.
about.
So
He's
fun.
so physical. He's so violent. And yeah, he's not huge. He's not super athletic, but man, he absolutely plays like it. So, he's number 5 for me. And then I put Braswell at 6. So that leaves us with 2 other guys here, Adisa Isaac and Jonah Elliss. What order did you have them in at 7 and 8?
Just like that, Adisa Isaac, then Jonah Elliss.
Nice. So we're aligned perfectly, Joey. I mean, the only difference was Bralen Trice and Chris Braswell being swapped at 5 and 6, but we have a very similar list, man. It always seems to be the way. We always go through these guys and we have a lot of the same feelings on players, and every once in a while we have different rankings, but man. Pretty spot on here once again.
It's vindicating.
It is, dude. It is. Yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun to dive in, watch the tape on these guys, combine them with the data and the numbers, and come up with where we like them and what their potential is. And I feel pretty good about this group right now. There's still a few other guys, Darius Robinson in Missouri, and other guys that we can look at, and we'll see what happens in the draft and stuff. And we'll regroup after the draft, and we'll see what the draft capital says and what the landing spots say and everything like that, and do it all again to try to resort these guys, see if the order changes a little bit. But I'm feeling pretty good that Latu's not leaving that top spot for me.
No, I am intrigued. There's a couple of guys I'm intrigued. Muhammad Kamara, Austin Booker. What's his name? Javon Solomon from Troy.
Oh, Troy. Yeah,
he's an interesting one. Smaller guy, but he's got a compact little frame to him with some serious power.
Yeah,
but he's only 6 feet tall, I think.
That's right. There's a few guys for sure that I think once the NFL draft kind of wraps up, like what we usually do is we usually just talk the first 10 guys drafted. Like there could be some new names that we end up covering post draft, and there's some sleeper guys in there as well. Like you said, the Javon Solomon is kind of an interesting, fun little player. But yeah, there's always more. There's always more to talk about, but we'll get to that at some point here. But that is going to wrap it up for today. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. And if you're watching on the YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Or if you're listening to the audio, we appreciate you. So most of all, though, a massive thank you to the one and only Joey the Tooth for coming on, breaking down this rookie edge class with me. Always a pleasure, my friend. So thank you for coming on and lending your expertise.
Thank you for allowing me to come on for yet another year. I really appreciate it.
Always, buddy. I will keep having you back on until you tell me to F off, which hopefully doesn't happen.
I don't think it'll ever happen, man.
So, yeah, well, I'm sure we'll run it back again after this. But, man, before you go, please remind everybody where they could find more of you and your work as well.
You can find all of my written content at footballguys.com. Rankings, projections, articles, everything's there.
Perfect.
Me and Kyle Bellafuel, who was on last week, we're actually going to have as soon as the draft's done, a top 40 IDP big board coming out. So
nice.
That'll be
That's
fun.
smart.
Yep.
Yeah. Love that. That will definitely be fun. It's always good to see kind of where everybody lands on these players post draft once landing spots come into play, right? Because we could feel pretty good about guys pre-draft and where we would take them and what we want from them. But then, landing spots can either be a dream or a nightmare for some players. So it's always a good time to see how things shake out.
It's crazy sometimes how you can be high in a player, then all of a sudden you watch how GMs are not at all, and you see him drop in like that fifth round range, and you're like, well, he's not going to do anything now.
Or they go undrafted like Ivan Pace.
Or they go undrafted and then they perform.
Yeah, exactly. Like Ivan Pace. But yeah, it's going to be fun either way. The draft is always a great time. But yeah, other than that, my work on PFF.com, I wrote up the strengths and weaknesses of this year's edge class, bunch of other draft content as well, looking at quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, all that fun stuff with more to come. Next week on the podcast, we're going to have John Glosser from Dynasty Nerds. He's going to be on to talk the rookie defensive back group. That should be a lot of fun as well. Another interesting group, not getting a lot of excitement right now, but there should be some players that we'll have some fun with. But yeah, other than that, check out the rookie quarterback preview and the rookie wide receiver preview that Kate and I have recorded so far as well here on the podcast. But that's going to do it for today. Thank you all again for listening and tuning in. Thank you again, Joey. And until next time, peace out.